What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some early thoughts ahead of game week 7. So I'm going to talk about some important players, what to do with them, who you should bring in, who you should sell. Then I'm going to give you some quick thoughts on my own team as well. So let's get into it. So let's start with Saka versus Gyökeres. I think a lot of people will be looking to bring in an Arsenal attacker this week. It's worth saying, by the way, they're not absolutely essential. If you're looking at your team thinking, I don't really want Saka, I've got no room for Gyökeres, or none of my forwards need selling, that's fine. They're not essential to bring in, but a lot of people will be looking at them this week, mostly because it's West Ham at home in game week 7. And then in 10 and 11, they got Burnley away and Sunderland away, which also look like pretty good fixtures. 8 and 9 is Fulham away and Palace at home. A little bit more difficult. I wouldn't have them down as easy games, but I think Arsenal will be favourites in both of those matches. So next 5 overall, I think look pretty good. And then Spurs at home in 12 is not awful. Chelsea away in 13 is a little bit tougher. And then 14 onwards, the fixtures are still pretty good. So you could almost see Arsenal players as both short and long-term picks. So I think they are worth considering. Who is better, Saka or Gyökeres? Had that question a lot last week. It's going to happen a lot this week as well. I think from that Newcastle game yesterday, a lot of people seem to have come away with that Saka was really good and Gyökeres wasn't. And I'm not quite sure that was the case in terms of FPL points expectations. In the first half especially, I thought Arsenal were very good and Saka did look good. But now try and think about when he had a good opportunity to score or when he created a really good chance. It didn't really happen that often. And the stats from that game also kind of back that up. Now, I don't think Gyökeres was massively threatening either. But he came very close to winning a penalty. May well have taken that as well. And there was a couple of chances. If he just shot a little bit quicker, he would have made the goalkeeper work a bit more than he actually did in that game. Now, you could say maybe that's just a disadvantage with him. He's not going to shoot quick enough, and that might carry on in the easier games. But this is still a guy that's got 3 goals in the first 6 matches, and his minutes have been better than Saka as well, because Saka's just back from injury, and he's probably having to be managed a little bit. Like, he came off around the 70th minute yesterday, Champions League midweek, then that West Ham game. He could be subbed early in both of those games. I would say at the very minimum, Gyökeres' minutes for game week 7 in particular are just as good as Saka's. I don't see Saka playing more game time than him. And personally, I think Gyökeres will be on penalties. The problem is we don't know because that penalty got overturned yesterday. Saka was holding the ball, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was going to take the penalty. For the Man United one, Fernandes was basically holding it the whole time, and we knew that he would take it. I think Saka would have passed the ball to Gyökeres, and I think he is first choice. So for less money at 9 million, potentially better minutes, especially this week, and penalties, I think you can make the case that Gyökeres is the slightly better pick. But with Saka, you know what you're getting. And when I say that, by the way, I know he's not returned massively from a goals and assists perspective for a little while, but we've had lots of data on him, lots of matches in the Premier League. You know that whatever players are fit for Arsenal, Saka is in that first 11. Whereas with Gyökeres, maybe there's a bit more competition when Havertz is back, etc. But right now, that competition is not there. And I think we all worry about Gyökeres' minutes, but he's played 490 minutes in the last 5 matches. So I think it's really close. I think the other problem which makes this decision a little bit more difficult is I can sit here and say, well, you go Gyökeres because the cheap midfielders are really good. The cheap forwards also look quite good right now. I think Strand Larsen's an option. Thiago's an option. You've even got Calvert-Lewin at Leeds. There's suddenly a lot of cheap forwards as well. And someone like Calvert-Lewin is probably on penalties. Thiago might be on penalties at Brentford as well. And I think Strand Larsen will be at Wolves. So it's a really close call. I guess over the long term, I trust Saka more. Because it doesn't matter who comes back from injury, he's going to play. Whereas Gyökeres' minutes are more likely to drop over the long term. I think Saka's are more likely to go up. So if I'm targeting game week 7 in particular, I think I prefer Gyökeres. But if we're looking down to kind of game weeks 11, 12, I probably just about prefer Saka. I don't think there's that much in it. And if Gyökeres does start performing better in terms of output over these next few fixtures, you know, he could keep starting and Havertz could just come off the bench for him. So I would say very short-term game week 7 Gyökeres. After that, I probably trust Saka a little bit more, but there's not much in it. And also, it's absolutely viable to go with neither. It's viable to go with both or just one. I think you can go either way. I just don't see them as essential at all. So go whichever way you want. I've got Gyökeres and I've got no plans to switch him to Saka. I just don't think it's worth 2 transfers. I'm not that worried about him. I guess Saka is probably the safer pick over the long term. So one other thing I've just thought about, and this is just a minor thing, I wouldn't let this be the main basis for your decision, but Saka is obviously a midfielder, and that might make it easier later on to go back to Palmer if he can prove his fitness, or maybe back to Salah if you're on a non-Salah draft. Like Palmer in particular is only 0.5 million more expensive than Saka. If you find yourself with that much money in the bank, with some of Chelsea's good fixtures coming up, you might want to make that move. I guess the only problem is one of those fixtures is game week 9, Sunderland at home, and I'm a little bit doubtful as to whether Palmer will have proved his fitness by then. And the other one is game week 11, when he's got Wolves at home. But that week, Saka's got Sunderland away anyway, so I'm not sure you would necessarily want to make the move, but potentially you've got an easier route back to those two players. Whereas with Gyökeres, if you need to go back to them, you've got to use 2 free transfers to free up that money. You might not have money in the bank, in which case it's 2 free transfers to move Saka on anyway. It's just a minor thing. So, again, probably Saka, but I think we are over-worried about Gyökeres. I think he will come good over these next few games. So another Arsenal attacker you could consider is Eberechi Eze, and I actually thought he was probably Arsenal's best attacker yesterday. He was definitely the most threatening, especially in that first half where Arsenal were very good. Is he an option for 7.5 million? Potentially, if, guess what, you think his minutes are going to be pretty good. Now, yesterday he played in a central role. Trossard was playing off the left. And then when Odegaard came on later on, Eze stayed on the pitch. Now, I don't think that's a massive indicator of what's going to happen in the future because Arsenal were chasing that game. So there was no need to take someone like Eze off because you're trying to get 1 or 2 goals. He had to stay on, which is part of the reason he played the full 90. If Arsenal were in control of that match and it was 2 or 3-0, I suspect we would have seen Odegaard come on for someone like Eze. I don't necessarily think we would have seen the full 90. And that's my problem with him going forward. Now, if you want to take the punt, because he's only 7.5 million and they have got good fixtures coming up, I really don't mind it. But you're not allowed to complain when he gets benched. That is the rule if you buy Eze. Because when everyone is fit, you've got Trossard, Martinelli, Eze can all play on the left. And in that central position, you've got Merino. Rice is obviously one of their central midfielders as well. And you've got Odegaard too. Now, I suspect that most weeks it will be Zubimendi plus Rice, then plus one of Eze or Odegaard. But I just don't, as good as Eze is, and I think he's brilliant, I love watching him play, I'm just not sure I see him taking over that first choice role from Odegaard. Like, Odegaard's going to get so many minutes. And that is just a problem for me going forward. I personally hate these kind of headaches. Every time the Arsenal team sheet comes out, I will have to check whether Eze is on it. And now Odegaard's back fit, you just don't know. Now, it could be that Champions League midweek, Eze gets a rest and Odegaard starts. Then Eze's back in for West Ham. Happy days, right? Good fixture, good option, 7.5 million. What about after the international break? If all those attackers are still fit, you're just not going to be able to guarantee the minutes. Now, he is averaging 84 minutes per start this season, but that's not all in an Arsenal shirt. If we look at what's happened the first few games, you know, it was on at halftime against City. Remember, he was benched literally game week 5, not that long ago. 78 minutes against Forest, and obviously he was off the bench again against Liverpool. So we haven't really got much of a sample size. Sorry, so the 84 minutes, part of that is because he played 83 for Palace against Chelsea in game week 1, by the way. So we haven't got a great sample size of, you know, how often is he going to get past 80 minutes? And again, he's only 7.5. So if he only plays 75 minutes for you, maybe that's okay. But what about the time when he gets benched? It's going to happen. I don't think he's starting the next 4 or 5 games in a row. He's more likely to play 3 or 4 of them, I think. And I just don't think it's worth it for 7.5. I think there's plenty of other midfielders you can go to that are a lot safer. So this is not one for me, clearly, but I understand why people are looking at him. The underlying numbers are pretty good. If he gets the minutes, he will get plenty of returns. Probably should have had one yesterday, especially a goal. I couldn't do it. I just don't want to be looking at that team sheet all the time. And I just don't have any confidence that he's going to become first choice starting every game. So I've had a few questions about Bruno Fernandes. One is simply what to do with him. And the second one is, will he still be on penalties? Because Man United have had 3 in the first 6 game weeks, which is exactly what you want when you pick a penalty taker in FPL. But unfortunately, he's missed 2 of them, which is far from ideal. Will he keep penalties? It's difficult to know. His conversion rate is really good. He took 7 last season, scored all of them. And over his career, he's scored 62 from the 70 he's taken. So he's had a pretty decent record, but not this season. And I listened to the Above Average FPL podcast the other day, and they were speculating about whether it's because he's changed his technique. He used to do that little skip where he tried to send the keeper the wrong way and then he missed, and now he doesn't do that anymore. Maybe he's just overthinking it. Maybe it's because a couple of the missed penalties he's had this season, he's had so long to think about it. The one against Brentford, there was all the VAR checks, and then they made substitutions as well to kind of put him off a little bit more, and then he goes and misses. So who knows what's going on in his mind when he takes the penalties. But the more you miss, the more pressure builds, right? But he did score the one against Burnley. So maybe he takes the next one. My money is on Bruno taking the next penalty, but I'm a lot less confident about that than I was when he missed the first one, because you've got players like Mbeumo there with pretty good records. It's worth saying Mbeumo's already missed a penalty for Man United, by the way, in the Carabao Cup penalty shootout against Grimsby, and Fernandes scored that game. So his conversion rate in the Premier League is 33%. The entire season it's 50%, which is a little bit better, but not quite as good as he's been before. So I think he will keep penalties, but I'm not as convinced as I was the first missed penalty. And by the way, if he does lose penalties, 9 million in FPL, not for me. And I would probably have to think about selling him sometime soon. In terms of what to do with him, I think you keep him for Sunderland at home and then you reassess after that. I think from game week 8 onwards, if you wanted to sell him, that's absolutely fine. I still wouldn't see him as a must sell, like a player that always starts, that you've got no concerns over with injuries, Europe and stuff like that. He's never going to be a must sell, but he's not essential either. And Liverpool away is not great. And after that, it's Brighton at home, Forest away, Spurs away, Everton at home. It's an okay fixture run, but it's not amazing. So I think it's perfectly reasonable. If you want to keep him for Sunderland, then sell him, you should. The way I'm thinking about him right now, because I said last week I thought he was a good option. I don't want to change my mind too much on that. I suspect over the course of the season, there'll be much better value players than Bruno Fernandes. Like if he averages 4.5 to 5 points per game, there'll be people that do that for a lot less money. The problem is determining who those players are definitely going to be and having them at the right times is always a bit more difficult. Part of the reason you pay a little bit extra with Bruno is the consistency. He might not go and score like a Haaland or Salah, someone like that, but you know he will chip in with points over and over again. But you pay a little bit more for that certainty. And it's about whether it's worth paying that. Right now, I think, for my own team, if I go for Gabriel, I can't get Saka anyway, and Palmer's not fit at the moment. So the only other midfielder I'm really worried about is Salah. So I feel a lot less pressure about having to get rid of Bruno. But if Saka was doing amazing and Palmer was fully fit, all of a sudden it gets a lot more difficult to justify owning him. So I think long term, my Fernandes plan would be probably to go back to Salah, but that's a long way down the line. So I don't think personally I'm going to sell him over the next few weeks because I just have other stuff to do. But I think it's fine to do it. And if Man United get another penalty and they're both on the pitch and Mbeumo takes it, Fernandes will be gone pretty quick for me, I think. So I think some people are starting to have concerns about João Pedro. It's blanks in the last 2 game weeks. And the match before that against Brentford, he didn't really have a huge amount of chances to score. His assist came from basically the ball hitting him on the head. He kind of went up to try and win a header and it hit him. He didn't necessarily know too much about it and then fell to Cole Palmer. And obviously that's an FPL assist. No one's saying otherwise. But it's not like he's created a proper chance and then had loads of shots as well. So it's a little bit concerning, but I think we should cut him some slack. Because against Brighton, Chelsea were down to 10 men after about 50 minutes. And against Man United, they were down to 10 men after 5 minutes. So they haven't played the last 2 games in full with 11 players. What is encouraging is that he's played 90 minutes in both games. And his minutes going forward look really good. They have to be because of the amount of injuries that Chelsea have at the moment. And you could say, I guess, without Cole Palmer, they're a little bit weaker going forward. But I don't think that would have a massive impact. If João Pedro keeps playing close to 90 every game they've got coming up, he will get chances. What's a bit more concerning is the underlying numbers. Like against Brighton, 0xG, 0.03 expected assists. Bearing in mind they played over half the game with 11 players, so you think he could have done a bit more. It was the same against Man United, but again, 10 men for the majority of that game. But even against Brentford, like 0.15 expected goals. I think João Pedro is pretty simple. Don't buy him this week. Maybe if you're on wildcard as a long-term pick, that's fair. But I wouldn't use a transfer. It's Liverpool at home. Wait until Forest away in 8 or Sunderland at home in 9 if you really want him. And don't sell him either. It's just not worth a transfer out. I just don't think that's a high-value move to sell João Pedro. The fixtures coming up are still good. I think you've just got to set your expectations better. I've said this all season. João Pedro is a bit overrated as a pick. He's good, but he's not 66.6% own good. He's not a prolific goal scorer at all. Like, if you look at his record in the Premier League so far, like 10 goals, 6 assists last year, that looks great. Of course it does. But a lot of those goals were penalties. He doesn't have penalties at Chelsea. I mean, he might take one over Enzo Fernandes, we'll see. But we know when Palmer's fit, he's on penalties. 9 goals the season before. I think there were some penalties in there as well. 3 goals the season before that. He's not this prolific goal-scoring number 9. That's just not his game. I don't even think it's his best position. He's got to play there right now because of the injuries, but he's probably better as a number 10. So he will chip in with goals and assists. The fixtures are too good to not do that. Like Sunderland at home in 9, good. Wolves at home in 11, really good. Even Forest away in 8 is not bad. So he will chip in, but he's not going to be this goal and assist every single game week. I hate to break it to you. But for 7.8 million, he's still pretty good value. And he is going to get a lot of minutes as Chelsea's number 9. And that means something. And also with forwards right now, I feel like I'm going to be saying this most weeks at the moment. Like, who's even that exciting to move to? Like, Evan Nilsson, fine against Fulham, not worth a transfer. Calvert-Lewin if you really need the money, but who's in a rush to buy him before Spurs? I wouldn't buy Richarlison at the moment, I don't think. Gyökeres, fine. I'd rather have Gyökeres than João Pedro, but he's a bit more money. So it's not like... there's more to it than just who's better of the two. It's like, have you got the extra 1.2 to spend? And again, I probably wouldn't make that move. No one's buying Šeško. Ekatike, Isak, personally for me, they're probably avoids for now, but maybe you could think about Isak in the future. Ollie Watkins has got one good game, then they get slightly worse, so you're probably not picking him up. You get the point, right? Like, Voltemada's okay, but he's not better than João Pedro. So even if you wanted to move him on, I just don't think it's that exciting to spend transfers on forwards right now. So I think he's a very easy hold. And I say that as someone that doesn't own him and has no intention to buy him. I might do, because the fixtures coming up are good, but no plans at the moment. So yeah, easy hold, don't buy, probably or maybe include him on wildcard. So just some early thoughts on my own team for game week 7. I've got 1 free transfer and 2.9 million in the bank. I'm conscious that I need that money spent sooner rather than later. It's okay to have money in the bank, but generally the more of your budget you've got spent, the more points you're going to get. So I don't want to leave it hanging around too long. But I'm also conscious that at some point soon I need to start rolling transfers. There's so many more interesting things you can do if you've got 2 or 3 transfers saved up. And with the way I've got my squad set up with 15 playing players and good squad depth, I'm never going to be able to justify taking a hit. So unless I roll a transfer soon, I can't really move the funds around in my attack. And that's what's playing on my mind. Because with 2.9 million, I could go to Saka this week, but I would have to sell Fernandes or Semenyo, and I don't want to do that. To go from Dewsbury Hall or Paquetá to Saka, I've got to free up money from the forward line. I'm not going to take a hit to do that. And even if I wanted to make a 1 transfer move, like Dewsbury Hall to a 7.9 million midfielder, I don't think it's that interesting with 1 move. Like Mitoma or Kudus, I'm not going to do that. I could sell Paquetá to like an 8.8. So I could go Paquetá to Foden or Paquetá to Mbeumo or Cunha. That is an option. But then I go into game week 8 with only 1 move. And I've got Cunha or Mbeumo against Liverpool. Or Foden, who I'm going to keep checking the team sheet to see if he's going to start. And I think he probably will keep starting for now. But long term, who knows? So I don't really want to make a 1 transfer move. So my options this week basically are buy Gabriel and try and roll in game week 8. Or roll this week and in game week 8 after the international break have 2 moves to maybe do something interesting with that attack. Options, by the way, for interesting moves after the break. Gyökeres down to Strand Larsen allows me to do Fernandes to Salah. So I could go straight to a Salah Haaland draft. The only player I feel like I'd be missing then is Gabriel. I just don't know how much of a rush there is to get to get Salah, because I'm more than happy to captain Haaland game week 7 to 10 and beyond that as well. I think for Salah, the time I really want him is game week 12 for captaincy against Forest and game week 14 against Sunderland at home. But I've still got a free hit to use. And if there's no blanks or doubles later on in the first half of the season, I can maybe use my free hit to get Salah in for one of these 2 games. So that is something I could potentially do. Get Salah after the break for free and just pivot to a Haaland Salah draft. I kind of just want Gabriel. And my attack actually looks okay this week. Like Reinders, Fernandes, Semenyo, Dewsbury Hall, Evan Nilsson, Haaland, Gyökeres. Even if Dewsbury Hall picked up his 5th yellow card tonight against West Ham, I could just play 4 at the back. So I'm very tempted to do Goodmanson to Gabriel, and part of me thinks I shouldn't do that. because having a 4 million defender spot is always nice to keep money in your attack. But then every other week I've got someone asking me whether we should play 4 or 5 at the back because defenders are so good. So which is it? Do I need to keep money out of my defence? Or do I go big at the back? Like if I bought Gabriel for Goodmanson, I could even maybe play Van Dijk over Dewsbury Hall, whether he gets the yellow card or not, and just play 4-3-3. Gabriel is the one player, I've said this now for the last couple of weeks, he's the one player I wish I'd had on my wildcard in Game Week 4. There's lots of players I obviously don't have, but he's the one that keeps playing. And the fact he got a 13-pointer yesterday does not help because that's what he can do. He's such a good threat from set pieces, and Arsenal defence is so good. So I think I'm going to spend hours on this, and I'm going to do Goodmanson to Gabriel by the deadline. And I'm just going to go without Salah until I can find more money for him later on, or I switch back from Haaland to Salah. I just don't think Salah's going to be needed until Game Week 12. By the way, I've looked at this. If the prices stay the same as they are, and I get Gabriel before he goes up again, I don't think he'll go up before the deadline. But let's just say I get Gabriel for Goodmanson. That leaves me 0.7 million in the bank. If later on, when I've got 2 free transfers, I did Gyökeres out to Gyökeres, Bruno Fernandes, I'd have 14.4 million to spend. Salah is currently 14.5, but surely he's going to drop at some point. So if Gyökeres and Fernandes could keep their value and Salah would drop, I can actually afford to get Gabriel this week and in Game Week 9 maybe get Salah. And even if that doesn't work out, Game Week 9 Salah wouldn't be essential anyway. So I could just wait another week and then free up some money somewhere else. This is where I need the transfers. This is where I really, like, if I get Gabriel this week, I will do everything I can in Game Week 8 to roll. I will just need to do that. So, for example, if I had 3 free moves, Lacroix, if I wanted to keep a Palace player, I could just go to Richards. And all of a sudden at that point, in theory, I've got everyone I could want. Haaland and Salah. And okay, I've got a third forward that never plays, pretty much, Gyökeres. But then I've got Van Dijk, Gabriel, Anderson, Richards, Senesi. They're all really good defenders. And I've got Raya in goal. Like, where's the issues here? There isn't really. And okay, you might say Dewsbury Hall, Reinders, Paquetá's not great. But I don't have to play them every week because I've got 5 good defenders. The reason, by the way, I don't want to... So some people would just say, sell Van Dijk to Gabriel so that you've still got that money in the bank. I just think Van Dijk's a good long-term pick. Like, honestly, if you think about right now who the top 3 or top 5 defenders are in FPL, Van Dijk's in those categories for me. I know Liverpool defence hasn't looked great, but in 4 of the 6 fixtures so far, they've kept the opposition down to less than 1 XG. He's got defensive contributions in 4 of 6 games. He's got goal threat. And honestly, Game Week 8 to 19, maybe City away, Spurs away, games you wouldn't want to play him in. The rest are all fine. For me, selling Van Dijk's a problem because I probably want to buy him back. And that's just a waste of transfers. So I think if I buy Gabriel, it's got to be for Goodmanson because all my other defenders are good. Or I just roll and hope that he doesn't get a 15-pointer against West Ham. Because in Game Week 9, he's got Fulham away anyway, so I wouldn't necessarily... in Game Week 8, he's got Fulham away, so I wouldn't necessarily need him. Honestly, I look at I think roll is actually the move I should make. But I'm going to end up doing Goodmanson to Gabriel. I can feel it. Anyway, that's my ramble. I'll talk about all this again on team selection. Obviously, we've got Champions League matches and stuff midweek. So if Gabriel was to pick up a knock, I wouldn't need him. So I'm not going to make any early moves. As it stands, Haaland captain, rolling the transfer, or doing Goodmanson to Gabriel. Something else might crop up. I might have something more interesting to do later this week, but I just don't see it. I think the team overall looks pretty nice this week. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you tomorrow for transfer tips.